From Southwest Florida's news leader, this is Wink News Now at 10.
Christian will not attend his 3rd birthday. Christian will not be able to hold a diploma at his high school graduation. And Christian will not be able to have any children of his own.
Only on Wink, the grieving mother of a 2-year-old, the toddler, drowned in a kiddie pool while at daycare tonight. Why she says her son's death was not a tragic accident.
Plus, we're digging to learn more about that deadly day.
Children can fall over. All they need to do is slip. It only needs a few inches of water. They can bang their head on the bottom of the pool.
New at 10, we reveal the dangerous truth about kiddie pools.
And President Obama gets personal and weighs in on the Trayvon Martin case.
But we are still tracking a few light showers here in Southwest Florida, but for the most part, we are starting to see those showers and storms lighten up. So overnight tonight, you'll notice in the next really couple of hours, those showers completely dissipating. Just a partly cloudy sky in store for tonight. When I come back, we'll talk about those rain chances over the weekend.
This certainly was not a tragic accident that could happen literally to anyone. Melissa Smith failed my son, and she failed me.
Tonight, in an exclusive interview, the mother of a toddler who drowned in a daycare swimming pool sits down to share how her world has been turned upside down.
Yeah, Krista Lemonakis is living a parent's nightmare. On June 24th, she got word that the 2-year-old she brought to daycare that morning was never coming home again. Earlier today, she sat down with me after collecting her thoughts on paper to talk about what happened and tell me about the little boy that is gone forever.
He was amazing. He was just full of life, and it's really hard. Everyone that knew Christian knows what an impact that he made. I mean, there wasn't anyone that met him that he didn't make an impact on, and he was amazing.
Krista Lemonakis is living a nightmare. On June 24th, she took her 2-year-old son, Christian Bird, to Smith's Family Daycare in Lehigh Acres, but never brought him home. Deputies say Christian drowned in a kiddie pool in the home daycare's backyard.
When Melissa Smith accepted responsibility to care for my son, Christian, she made a conscious decision to do exactly that, care for him. However, Melissa Smith's actions of gross negligence on June 24th led to the death of my son. Now Christian is dead, and he is gone forever. I will never get to see him again. I will never get to hold him again. Nor will I have a chance to experience the life that I once imagined for him. This is the last picture that we took of him.
When was that taken?
It was taken on Father's Day.
After the rain.
Christian will not attend his 3rd birthday. Christian will not be able to hold a diploma at his high school graduation. And Christian will not be able to have any children of his own. The truth is, the death of my son could have been prevented. And whether through awareness or changes in legislation, my new goal is to prevent this from happening again. This certainly was not a tragic accident that could happen literally to anyone. Melissa Smith failed my son, and she failed me.
Krista tells me that Christian did not know how to swim. He had been attending the Smith Family Daycare since October of 2012. He would have turned 3 years old on August 2nd.
Our cameras were there today as Melissa Smith posted bail this afternoon. She is out of jail tonight after turning herself in on Thursday and making her first appearance before a judge this morning. Team coverage at 10. The children at the daycare were left alone in a small kiddie pool. Swimming experts say those can be just as dangerous as full-sized pools. Haley Hines live in Fort Myers tonight with what parents and caregivers need to know around any water. Haley.
The maximum fill line on this inflatable pool goes about 6 inches deep. A small child could sit in it, but it only takes 1 or 2 inches of water for a child to drown.
Okay, we got a little boy that appears like he drowned in a swimming pool. My Next door neighbor brought him over.
This 911 call captures the moments after Smith Family Daycare owner Melissa Smith found 2-year-old Christian Bird unresponsive in this kiddie pool. According to the sheriff's office, on June 24th, Smith left Christian and 3 other small children unattended for 5 to 7 minutes. When she found the little boy, she rushed him to a neighbor's house.
And is he awake?
No.
Okay, is he breathing?
No. Attempting CPR, but it doesn't seem to work. I think he's gone myself.
The journal Pediatrics found that 1 child in the U.S. dies in a portable pool every 5 days during the warm weather months. It's a statistic Jane Roberts wants to eliminate.
Children can fall over, all they need to do is slip. It only needs a few inches of water. They can bang their head on the bottom of the pool.
Roberts, owner of Swimmers in South Fort Myers, says pool owners need fences and doors with locks and alarms. But the danger, she says, goes beyond the swimming pool.
Things like buckets and toilets. You know, people leave the toilet seat. Babies can fall in there, you know, and can't get back up again.
And when the kids are done, Jane says to empty the pool and flip it. A daily rainstorm can fill it back up.
We live in Florida. There's so much water. It's just being aware and not leaving any child ever alone.
The Lee County Sheriff's Office says Melissa Smith consciously and intentionally left Christian Bird in that swimming pool without supervision, knowing he couldn't swim. Because of that, she's charged with aggravated manslaughter and child neglect. Live in Fort Myers, Haley Hines, Wink News Now.
All right, thank you, Haley. Just in at 10, we are learning that 1 person has died after falling from the Texas Giant ride at Six Flags in Arlington, Texas. That's the big wooden coaster. According to a spokesperson for the amusement park, an adult woman was killed. The ride is now closed pending further investigation.
And right now the Caloosahatchee Bridge downtown in Fort Myers is back open, but earlier tonight a pickup truck rolled over headed into North Fort Myers, causing both the north and southbound lanes to close for a while and backing up traffic. We're still working to get more information on exactly what happened. We'll let you know when we do.
Well, after going back and forth, there is now an agreement between Lee County Sheriff Mike Scott and the NAACP. Earlier this week, the sheriff sent a 2-page letter outlining his complaints with the civil rights group. But today, the two agreed to talk about their differences and move forward.
He thinks this Zimmerman deal was a racial issue. I don't. I think it is now because they made it that way.
I think that he said some things to me that he wished he wouldn't have said. And of course, I agree that I said some things to him that I wish I wouldn't have said.
Well, Sheriff Scott is not backing off on his criticisms, however, of the hip-hop culture and its use of the N-word. He faults the NAACP for not aggressively opposing that kind of music. And he still opposes removing the portrait of Robert E. Lee from the commission chambers.
Also developing tonight, police in Central Florida say the U.S. Department of Justice has placed a hold on all evidence related to the deadly shooting of Trayvon Martin. The Sanford police captain says that includes the gun that Zimmerman used to shoot Martin, which Zimmerman would otherwise be legally entitled to reclaim now. The Justice Department is investigating whether or not to bring a civil rights case against George Zimmerman.
Well, President Obama has told the nation what he thinks about George Zimmerman's acquittal in the death of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin.
During a surprise appearance before reporters at the White House this afternoon, the president spoke emotionally about the issue of race in the country today and said Americans need to do some soul searching on the issue. Danielle Nottingham has more from the White House.
President Obama made an unannounced appearance in the White House briefing room to offer his thoughts on one of the most talked about topics in the nation, the verdict in the George Zimmerman murder trial.
When Trayvon Martin was first shot, I said that this could have been my son. Another way of saying that is Trayvon Martin could have been me 35 years ago.
The president spoke candidly and personally about the racial divide in a way none of his predecessors could.
There are very few African American men in this country who haven't had the experience of being followed when they were shopping in a department store. That includes me.
It was not the first time the nation's first black president addressed the issue of race. During the 2008 presidential campaign, then Senator Obama delivered what was called an honest and risky speech on the subject.
On Friday, the president said things are getting better, but it will be a long-term project.
You know, we have to be vigilant and we have to work on these issues, and those of us in authority should be doing everything we can to encourage the better angels of our nature as opposed to using these episodes to heighten divisions.
His comments come just a day before planned rallies in 100 cities to protest Zimmerman's acquittal. At the White House, Danielle Nottingham, Wink News Now.
The president called on protesters to remain nonviolent. Violence, he said, would dishonor what happened to Trayvon Martin and his family.
Team coverage at 10 o'clock in Tallahassee. Protesters remained at the state capitol today, despite getting the meeting they wanted with the governor. The meeting between the Dream Defenders and Governor Scott lasted just under an hour. The governor listened to the group of 7 who were leading this sit-in, but he did not give in to their demands for a special session to talk about Florida's Stand Your Ground law. Florida's NAACP president says the pressure, though, will continue.
The protests will continue in Tallahassee and throughout the state until a special session is called.
Now, the Dream Defenders say it will prove how big their goals are by not leaving until the demand is met.
And tomorrow, a Trayvon Martin event will be held downtown in Fort Myers. A vigil is scheduled to start at 6 o'clock tomorrow in Centennial Park. The group meeting there will be joining 100 cities across the nation remembering Trayvon Martin. On Sunday, the Collier County chapter of the NAACP will honor the teen with a march and rally. That one's scheduled to start at the Naples Pier at 7 o'clock. Again, that's Sunday night.
A Lee County man charged with sex crimes now faces up to 30 years in prison. Gary Hall was found guilty of soliciting a minor for sex online and traveling to meet the minor. Hall's arrest was part of Operation Spiderweb. Lee County deputies busted 40 people in the sting in October of last year. Hall will be sentenced August 19th.
And new developments on a 2009 murder in Collier County. Kevin Reisner was sentenced to life in prison today for killing his girlfriend. Investigators say Reisner shot Laura Vroman 3 times. A jury found him guilty of second-degree murder in April.
Wildfires rage in Southern California. Can they be contained? Details ahead as widespread embers and little containment lead to continued evacuations.
Plus, helping their fallen brothers, local firefighters call on the community to help them raise money for the hotshot families in Arizona.
And then coming up in our second half hour, a technological turning point. One phone company says it's getting rid of copper phone lines, but some residents are not happy with that idea. A massive fire burning in the mountains near Palm Springs, California, threatens more communities as it burns out of control.
The nearly 25,000-acre fire has already forced 6,000 people to flee town, and it's destroyed at least 7 homes. Melanie Woodrow has the latest from the scene.
They're trying to keep fire out of that.
Firefighters are debriefed on the plan of attack as choppers airlift fire crews in and out of the San Jacinto Mountains.
When there's a lack of landing areas, we have the ability to drop ropes and insert firefighters into remote areas.
3,300 firefighters in the air and on the ground are racing to gain control of the blaze, which is only 15% contained. The fire has already blackened about 39 square miles and is spreading in 3 directions. The fire is actively burning in the north. Firefighters are paying attention to this northwest corner. Downdraft winds from potential thunderstorms may make the fire's path unpredictable.
If you're out there on the line and you get a downdraft, the fire can spread in any direction, and that's very difficult to predict.
The wildfire came within yards of the Garner family ranch. Helicopter water drops saved it. The property is now the staging ground for air crews.
They are truly heroes. They are our heroes. And I've lived here all my life, and this is the fire that we fear every year.
The wildfire destroyed at least 7 homes, including Fritz Wootke's. His chimney and parts of a swing set are all that is left.
It's just gone. So, there's a lot of memories and stuff.
While 6,000 residents have already fled their homes, residents in Pine Cove, a community west of the fire, are getting ready to flee. The town is under a voluntary evacuation as the wildfire moves closer. In Idlewild, California, Melanie Woodrow, Wink News Now.
A little bit of good news, though. A storm front headed to that region could bring some cooler weather and a chance of rain, but firefighters say the storm's erratic winds could make the situation more volatile.
Happening tomorrow, firefighters in Southwest Florida will put their cooking skills to the test to raise money for their fellow brothers. Firefighters have organized a family fun chili cook-off. All this money raised will go to support the families of those 19 firefighters killed in Arizona last month in the line of duty.
We're all in this together. We're all firefighters, brothers and sisters. When
one firefighter dies, we all pull together and to help the families and everything that they can to continue surviving on their own.
It's so awesome that they're helping everyone out west.
Absolutely.
The chili cook-off is from 11 in the morning until 2 at the Golden Gate Fire Station off of Collier Boulevard. There'll be raffles, lots of fire trucks, fire gear to entertain the kids. So go out there and
a lot of chili.
and help out. Yes, it'll be a great experience for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, the daytime heating, of course, that means less and less rainfall. So we are starting to see those showers really lighten up across much of southwest Florida, but we are still tracking a thunderstorm in northern Collier County, actually producing some lightning strikes in southern Lee County near San Carlos Park, as well as Bonita Springs. Notice Sunday, just afternoon storms expected, highs of 91 by Monday, up to 93 with just isolated rain expected.
All right, Katie, thank you. New tonight, a population of cane toads were found breeding on Sanibel this week. The species poses a very serious threat to wildlife on the island as well as to domestic pets. The large glands behind the eyes, on the right picture there, and above the shoulders produce a toxin that's both irritating and deadly to animals. The toxin is known to kill dogs, so pet owners should take precautions with their animals and keep them from biting or grasping the toads in their mouth.
Well, happening tomorrow, 300 people from Southwest Florida will be all smiles. Dentistry from the Heart. It's a one-day event that provides free dental care on a first-come, first-served basis. Dr. Wallace at Bonita Dental Care will provide those first 300 patients with a free extraction, filling, or cleaning. Over the past 3 years, Bonita Dental Care has donated more than $90,000 in free dental care.
Tonight, the Motor City is running on fumes as Detroit files for bankruptcy. We'll take another look at the possible repercussions for filing Chapter 9.
Plus, we're now learning more about the death of one of the passengers on the Asiana Airlines plane that crashed at San Francisco's airport. And
there's times when I feel like anything and everything bad is going to go wrong, and then I'm just paranoid about it, but then everything ends up being fine, and then I start feeling better.
Tomorrow marks the one-year anniversary of the Aurora movie theater shooting. Tonight, we follow up with one survivor who says coming to terms with what happened that night is still a work in progress. On the money tonight, Detroit became the largest city in the U.S. to file for bankruptcy yesterday. Mark Strassman is in the Motor City tonight with a look at what caused the city's downfall and the possible repercussions for filing Chapter 9.
Detroit owes 100,000 creditors money that it doesn't have. The Motor City is running on fumes. 60% of its residents have left since the 1950s, and its unemployment rate is 16%. Michigan Governor Rick Snyder.
This is the time to say enough is enough in terms of the downward decline of Detroit. The 700,000 people of Detroit deserve a better answer.
Detroit's negotiating a $340 million deal to get big banks to accept 75% of what they're owed. But other creditors, including municipal bondholders, could end up with pennies on the dollar. And city workers, owed $9 billion in benefits and pensions, oppose this bankruptcy the most.
You've been picketing and protesting. That's not how you plan to spend your retirement.
No.
David Soul retired as a city employee last January. He spent 22 years working as a union chemist.
You got to decide what's important, and then you fight. Then you do what has to be done.
Because it's your retirement that's on the line.
It's my survival that's on the line.
You take home $1,750 a month in your pension. How much of that could you really afford to lose?
None of it. None of it. We don't live high off the hog in this household.
This may be the most complicated municipal bankruptcy ever. A federal judge and these creditors all have to agree, and many residents expect services to get worse in a city where police average an hour to respond to an emergency. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Detroit.
More than 2,000 teachers and school staff are out of a job in Chicago. The city's public school system announced that layoff this week, sparking a firestorm of criticism and now finger-pointing. District officials are calling the cuts frustrating but necessary. They're blaming those cuts on a $1 billion deficit driven primarily by a giant increase in annual teacher pension payments. According to the Chicago Tribune, about half of the teachers being let go are tenured. The last time Chicago Public Schools laid off such a large number of teachers was back in 2010 due to the financial crisis.
It's your money. The interest rate on student loans won't be doubling after all, at least not for now. The U.S. Senate reached a deal on Thursday to keep student loan rates low, but only in the short term. Rates are now 3.86% for undergrads Grad students pay 5.4%, parents 6.4%. The lower interest rates are retroactive, so if you took out loans after July 1st, these newer rates will apply, but there is a catch. The rates will be tied to the interest rate on the 10-year U.S. Treasury bond, meaning they're likely to go up in coming years.
A follow-up at 10 on radioactive material that's been found near Fort Bliss Army Post in Texas. Claims were made that radioactive material was buried in that area, and officials now say alpha and beta radiation was confirmed, but says it was also contained and not a danger to area residents or workers. They also said the community's water supply has not been affected. Victims of sexual assaults in the military are in Washington telling their stories to lawmakers and trying to let the public know how hard it was to get help for their trauma from the military.
My rapist confessed to enough of his crimes that he was reduced in rank, lost pay, and was confined to barracks. This is an example of chain of command harassment because the barracks he was confined to was the one where I worked.
When our sons and daughters sign up to defend our nation, they willingly anticipate facing hostile fire from enemy forces. But they don't sign up to potentially be subject to sexual assault from their colleagues.
A recent Pentagon report estimated as many as 26,000 military members may have been victims of sexual assault last year alone, with most of those cases going unreported. President Obama and Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel have made ending the epidemic a top priority, and today lawmakers were looking for ways to offer more support to sexual assault survivors. We have new details on the Asiana plane crash in San Francisco. A California coroner now confirms one of the victims of that crash died after a fire vehicle hit her. The 16-year-old teenager from China was flying to the U.S. to attend a camp. The San Francisco fire chief believes a specialized fire vehicle hit the girl. Police say she was on the ground covered in fire retardant foam that was sprayed on the wreckage. The chief called it a difficult and challenging rescue scene.
We go to work every day to save lives, and many lives were saved on July 6th. However, I don't want to take away at all from the loss of the 3 lives.
That jetliner was carrying 309 people when it crashed on a San Francisco runway July 6th. Federal investigators say that plane was flying too low and too slow during that final approach. Its landing gear and the tail struck a seawall on the start of the runway. 3 flight attendants were thrown out onto the runway, but they did survive. Another Chinese student was dead at the scene, and a 3rd child died days later. Connecticut senators are calling for an audit now of more than $11 million in donations received in response to the Newtown school shooting. The senators want to determine what donors want done with that money. This week, the Newtown Sandy Hook Community Foundation released a plan to give $7.7 million to the families and survivors and to have committees decide on uses for the rest of the money. Well, tomorrow marks 1 year since the theater shootings in Aurora, Colorado. 12 people died, 58 others were hurt. John Blackstone shows us how one young survivor is coping. All new at 10.
On the cheer squad at her Denver area high school, 14-year-old Kaylin Bailey is learning to trust others to catch her. Trust hasn't come easy for Kaylin in the year since she survived the Aurora theater shooting, as those with her were gunned down.
There's times when I feel like anything and everything bad is gonna go wrong, and then I'm just paranoid about it, but then everything ends up being fine, and then I start feeling better.
I got people running out of the theater, they're shot.
When the gunman opened fire at the midnight movie, Kaylin was sitting with 6-year-old Veronica Moser Sullivan and her mother, Ashley Moser, who was shot twice. Moser was paralyzed, unable to move. Kaylin struggled to save Veronica. She called 911.
And they told me to give Veronica CPR, and I was trying to explain to them that I couldn't because Ashley was laying on top of Veronica and I couldn't get to Veronica's chest.
In spite of Kaylin's efforts, Veronica died, the youngest victim of the mass shooting.
At the time, people were calling you a hero. You were denying that. How do you feel about what you did that night now?
I didn't feel like a hero then, and I don't feel like one now either.
We first met Kaylin 2 days after the shooting.
It must have been very confusing in there that the shooting is going on, the movie is still playing, the lights are off. What was that like in there?
It was terrifying. I knew where he was shooting from, but I didn't know where he was.
While the bullets missed her, her emotional wounds seemed obvious.
I'm still in shock. I don't think that it's hit me yet, what I've been through.
Over the past year, she has had help coming to terms with the terror of that night, but it remains a work in progress.
Like, my therapist will ask me certain questions about the theater, and then I'll answer, and then she'll say, how do you feel about that? And it's like blocked. It's like I have no feelings about it.
She hasn't been to a movie since, says she will probably never eat popcorn again.
People always used to tell me that it gets better, but you're always going to have those times in the day where it's just not good at all.
Earlier this year, she went on a church trip to Haiti, where she worked with orphans. There, she found some perspective.
I thought that my life was hard, but then I went to Haiti and I was like, my life really isn't that bad.
And at orientation for the high school where she will start as a freshman this fall, she discovered the cheer team.
I noticed like all the cheer girls were like laughing and having fun, and I was like, wow, I want to be a part of that.
As the smallest on the team, she's been given a place right at the top. For some, that could be frightening. But Kaylin is learning to face her fears and defeat them. John Blackston, Denver.
Just heartbreaking to see how such a young girl's life is shaped by that one event.
Yeah, and yet amazing to see what character she has.
Yeah.
We'll shift gears here a bit now. All new at 10, restoring art at the Vatican. 19th century American sculptures will soon be on tour here in the U.S. See how experts are touching them up right after the break.
Plus, healthcare at the pharmacy. From CVS to Walgreens, could retail clinics really replace the doctor's office? What you need to know, still ahead.
The Vatican has one of the largest and most valuable art collections in the entire world. As Alan Pizzi shows us now, restorers there are touching up sculptures of 19th century Americans that will soon be on tour here.
Great Renaissance paintings would seem to have little in common with sculptures of some of the most famous Native American tribes and leaders of the 19th century. But in fact, the paintings and the sculptures are both part of the vast collection of the Vatican museums.
The greatness of this exhibit and of this kind of work is that it's practically the only representation with statues of native people.
The plaster statues and friezes are the work of Ferdinand Petrich, a German who sketched the native leaders when they came to Washington to negotiate treaties. In doing so, Petrich nearly suffered a fate similar to that of the figure in his best-known work, a life-size rendering of the dying chief Tecumseh. Petrich was stabbed by jealous rivals, believed to be members of the Freemasons. The Vatican art historian, Professor Arnold Nesselroth, says they were backed by former President John Quincy Adams.
He was with the Masons, and the artists that which were in competition with Petrich were Freemasons, so they organized the attack.
Petrich recovered under the protection of President John Tyler, fled to Brazil, and completed the plaster sculptures based on his sketches over the course of 12 years before returning to Europe and donating them to the Vatican. The wonder is that they survived at all. Keeping plaster figures in shape is painstaking, delicate work. Cleaning the life-size statue of the great Sioux chieftain Tata Pessa with a dry sponge of vulcanized rubber is more than just taking the dust off, according to restorer Martina Brunori. In a certain way, she said, you have to deal with him as if he were a person, a man. The artworks are being touched up to go on tour to Germany and the United States, but they're more than just a traveling show. Petrich created them, and Pope Pius IX exhibited them as a statement about the violence being inflicted on Native American tribes in the mid-19th century.
They are the first monument against genocide. Art being employed to accuse injustice in a global sense. And I think that makes the subject very important also in the present day.
Which is one reason why so much care is taken to ensure that the works stay in good shape for the next 150 years. Alan Pizzi, Vatican City.
If you can't pick up the phone and dial 0 and get an operator, and you can't use your life alert system, and you can't use your home security system, and there's a burglar at your door, those are basic necessities. And we need to make sure that there are consumer protections in place.
Still ahead, so long landlines, why Verizon says it won't fix storm-damaged wires.
And we are still tracking a cell in northern Collier County, now starting to see some light shower activity develop into southern Lee as well as western Hendry County. When I come back, we'll track the rain and talk about the rain chances over the weekend.
And dropping pounds for a reward. New at 10, the sparkling incentive one city is giving to its dieters. An update now on a call for action alert we told you about last night. Ford now says it will offer free software upgrades to people who own its 2013 hybrids. Tests by Consumer Reports found that several hybrid vehicles were not getting the mileage listed on their window stickers. These upgrades are supposed to improve mileage in real-world driving conditions. Tonight at 10, there could be another casualty from Superstorm Sandy.
Yeah, Verizon actually says it will not replace traditional phone lines damaged by the disaster. Michelle Miller reports why this solution is leaving some feeling disconnected.
How much water came up?
A little under 2 feet of water.
Walter Veth hasn't had a phone line inside his home since Superstorm Sandy blasted Manahawkin, New Jersey over 8 months ago.
I assume since the telephone service would be one of the easier services to install that we would have service.
But Verizon, the company that owns the phone lines, has decided not to replace the copper wire infrastructure that once provided Veth and hundreds of other residents here with a landline. When Sandy hit, phone lines like this one were snapped. Others underground were flooded out. For 855 homeowners, that meant the end of hardline phone service as they knew it. Instead, Verizon is offering customers an alternative system called VoiceLink, a home phone service that runs on a cellular network. But Veth, like many other residents here, is hesitant to have the system installed, saying the service is unreliable and is incompatible with his home security system and fax machine. So are people just not willing to adapt?
I think people have a tendency to reach their comfort zone.
Tom McGuire is the Verizon executive in charge of operations. He says that all digital landlines are the wave of the future. Are we seeing the end of copper?
I think the bigger question is not whether or not copper is actually going to physically be out there, but will anybody really care that it's out there, or are they going to be using other technologies to communicate with their friends and relatives?
McGuire insists that the VoiceLink technology being offered to homeowners comes with the same capabilities as a traditional landline, including access to emergency services and security systems. But advocacy groups like the AARP oppose Verizon's plan, saying more research needs to be done before abandoning the landline.
If you can't pick up the phone and dial 0 and get an operator, and you can't use your life alert system, and you can't use your home security system, and there's a burglar at your door, those are basic necessities. And we need to make sure that there are consumer protections in place.
If state legislators put a stop to Verizon's plan, the company will have no choice but to restore its copper lines. But if the plan is approved, landlines that have existed for more than a century could soon be a thing of the past. Michelle Miller, Manahawkin, New Jersey.
And turning to our weather now, we are still tracking that thunderstorm that's slowly but surely fizzling out. Notice not seeing nearly as much orange or red on radar. For your Sunday, just afternoon storms expected. A bit more sunshine means highs a bit warmer, around 91 or so. By Monday, only isolated rain in the forecast, highs around 93 degrees.
All right, thank you, Katie. Only on Wink tonight, finding a cure for Lee County's pending doctor shortage. Lee Memorial says there is a serious need for primary care physicians and has a plan to fix that problem before it starts. The hospital is starting a new residency program. It's hoping to attract doctors to the area and, maybe more importantly, keep medical students from leaving Florida when they graduate and become medical residents.
In Florida now, there's a number of medical schools, and what they found is that about half the graduates of those medical schools are having to leave the state because there's not enough residency positions to train them. And so those potentially are lost doctors to Floridians.
Well, the residency program is the first of its kind between Tampa and Miami and should be up and running this time next year.
And team coverage at 10 on the doctor shortage. Basic clinics at chains like Walgreens and CVS are also trying to fill the gap. People find these clinics convenient options because for most Americans, they live within a 10-minute drive.
They're good for certain things. I think if you do have a very straightforward condition, when people have looked at the quality of care for the treatment of sore throats, ear infections, urine infections, they've found no difference between retail clinics and your regular doctor's office.
So how do you know when you should go or not go to a retail clinic?
The key for patients is to know that if you have something that requires more chronic management or seeing a doctor for follow-up tests, then you might want to make sure you're going back to your primary care physician. And also keep in mind that most of these clinics are staffed by advanced practice nurses and not physicians.
And therefore, these clinics can be 30 to 80% cheaper to use when it comes to ear, throat, and urine infections than going to an emergency room.
How's this for the incentive to lose weight? Gold. That's what Dubai is offering dieters in the city. Your Weight in Gold program. Sometimes being chubby isn't too bad, I guess, huh? Will give participants a gram of gold for every kilogram of weight lost, as long as they're overweight and lose at least 2 kilograms. Based on current market prices, that's about $41 for every 2.2 pounds. The United Arab Emirates has been battling an obesity problem, with a 2008 United Nations report showing a nearly 34% adult obesity rate there, but that's a pretty good incentive.
I was going to say, that'll get some people's attention.
Yes.
Would work for a lot of people, I think. Up next, she's the star of her own rock band, why the manager of this drum shop thinks the woman keeps returning. Love this.
She's good.
She's good. Keeps returning for a solo appearance.
Wow, look at her go. And a soldier surprise caught on camera. We'll show you the moment that caught his family completely off guard. Stay with us. You go, girl. This is not your typical rock star. This lady impresses me. She went into a Wisconsin drum shop and she just whipped out those sticks and started doing this rockin' drum solo. A manager at the Coalition Drum Shop in La Crosse says he knows very little about the woman, but he believes she obviously used to play in a band. You think?
I think, yeah.
The woman pops in every couple of months, jams on those drums, then takes off.
Are you freaking kidding me?
This is Ronson. Your husband's here reporting for duty.
Love that. And Airman's return home catches his family off guard as he pops up from underwater in full scuba gear. You can see Air Force Captain Hiram Bronson surprised his wife as she and her kids went for a swim. They thought he was in Afghanistan. He wasn't expected home for 3 weeks.
Oh, that's fantastic. Have a
So
great
cool.
weekend.